have a friend who's doing a little quilt display and is looking for a miniature quilt. So that's what I'm going to try and make today. For this, I'm going to use an AccuQuilt cutter. That's this machine here. This is a small one. I use it quite a bit, really. It's really good for shapes that are kind of not very even sized to cut. Not squares and things like that that cut quickly, but this one I'm going to make is a heart. This is the actual die. And so, you know, you can see that would be fiddly to cut out a few of those. 9 is what I'm going to make, 9 squares. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use some Misty fusible webbing, and this selection of fabrics. I'm going to stick to a theme of white, black, red and grey because those are colours that I particularly like. I make a lot of blue, but if I don't make blue, I like this selection of colours. The reason I'm going to use the Misty Fuse is because once I bind it onto the back of the fabric, there is no paper already on there. I'll be able to put more pieces of fabric through the AccuQuilt Go because there won't be the paper backing on it, you know, that I would have if I used the heat and bond. So for this project, this is a better choice. And also I found that if I use some other fusible fabrics that are paper backed, sometimes when I put them to the AccuQuilt, if I fold and do more than once, some of them, they kind of stick together. And that won't happen with this. The first thing I'm going to do is fuse some Misty Fuse to the back of some of these little pieces and make the hearts. So to do that, I've got some parchment paper here because with Misty Fuse you have to use backing. I'm going to just use this parchment paper and that should work just fine. I'm tearing 2 pieces, one for the underneath and one for on the top. So I really like this Misty Fuse, it works really well. The only problem is with it that it's quite hard to see, so sometimes when I cut a piece then I can't see it anymore, especially if I'm on an all white background. I'll just do a couple here and then I'll just make the rest and we'll go on from there. So I'm just going to cut some Misty Fuse about the right size. And I am putting it onto the wrong side. Put that over there for a minute. Now I've got that on there, I'm going to put the other piece of parchment paper on the top. And then I'm just going to press that following manufacturer's instructions. Okay, and then I'll get my Go cutter out and show you the next step. It is better if you just wait a minute before you try and peel this off. You can see on this little bit that I didn't see an edge there, and it's kind of folded underneath and stuck to the front. But luckily it doesn't matter because my heart won't go over that little bit. This is my cutter. I'm going to place my fabric, just making sure that it covers the heart where I want it to cut. And you can do more than one of these at once. You can feel the edges through there so you know that you're in the lines of where you want to be. Put the little plastic protector on there. And then just wind it through to give it a little push to get it started. And there you can see my 2 little hearts. I'm going to cut 9 squares in the white, and then there'll be some sashing and a border to make it a little bit larger size quilt. I'm going to go cut those, finish cutting the hearts, and then I'll come back. I'm going to machine applique around the hearts. I'm going to do each one in the correct colour, so on this red one I'm going to use red, and then I'll change my thread to black and then to grey. I'm using an applique stitch and I'm just sewing carefully around the edges, making sure it all lines up. I just pause and adjust my fabric a little bit when I need to go around curves. And just take your time doing this. Now the hearts are all appliqued, I'm going to make some sashing. I'm going to make it out of red and black. This is 1.5 inches wide, and I'm going to cut 4-inch strips to match the size of the white square. The black is also 1.5 by 4 inches. I'll need 6 red and 6 black. Then I've also cut some little 1.5 inch squares to fit as corners in between them. And I need 4 of these. I'm just going to lay out all my heart squares in the order that, or the arrangement that I want them. And now I'm laying the sashing in between the squares. The red is going to be vertical and the black is going to be horizontal. And it's a good idea to take a photograph of your arrangement so that when you put it back together, you can put the pieces all back in the same place. The black will go horizontally and then the little grey squares in between. But for the moment, I'm going to take those off again, and I'm just going to sew the red to the white squares. So I'm just going to fold the red sashing over, right sides together to the white square that it's going to be sewn to. And then using a 1/4 inch seam, I'm going to sew those in place. Now I'm just sewing the grey squares to the black horizontal strips. Now I'm just going to press these. These are all sewn now, and I used my photograph to put them back into place. Now I'm just laying the black strips with the grey squares sewn onto them in place, ready for my next step of sewing. Now I'm turning the horizontal sashing up so it's right sides together with the square above it. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam again and sew all those pieces on. They're all sewn down, have them all laid out here back in the right order. And now the last thing I need to do is sew the top 3 rows together, the first, the second, and then add the third. So I'm just going to do these row by row. I'm going to put them right sides together, and I'm going to make sure that I nest those seams. I'm going to stack these up so I can chain sew them, and then the ones that are left I'll add on afterwards. I've pressed all these seams, and now I'm going to add the last piece onto the row, the third one to each row. All that's left now is to sew these 3 rows together, and then this centre part of the quilt is done. So I'm folding the centre row up to the top. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam to sew those, and then I'll sew the third row on. I'm carefully pinning these rows together. I'm nesting all the seams and trying to match carefully. You can see here that all the seams line up nicely. I've added the third row on, and now the quilt centre is ready to measure for the borders. You should always measure a couple of times, not on the very edge. Once maybe a third up, and once maybe 2/3 of the way. The measurement should be the same. This one's 15 inches. And it's the same in the other direction. So I'm going to cut my borders. I'm going to do the sides first and cut the border 15 inches long, and have to decide on the width. I have some spare fabric here. This is not what I'm going to use for the border, but it was just close, and I just want to lay it under there and see what I think looks about the right width to use. And it looks like that's about 2 inches, so I'll probably cut the border 2 1/4 inches. I've cut my borders. I'm just going to finish pinning this one on and then sew it on. And I'm just going to do the other one exactly the same way. My borders are sewn on now. And now I'm going to measure widthways across this quilt to get the top and bottom measurements. So I did have a ruler in here, but it seems to have vanished, and the only person that's been in here is Jess the cat. And I don't know what's happened. So I had to get this board out to measure it on. So again, I'm measuring about 1/3 of the way down. And that's 16 1/2 inches. And different place. Yep, it's actually slightly over 16 1/2. It's 16 5/8. So let's check this one again. Yeah, 16 and 5/8. So I'm going to cut my borders 2 1/4 by 16 and 5/8, and then I'll add the top and the bottom on. And maybe I'll find my ruler too. Okay, the heart quilt is done. It has its borders on. I didn't show you putting the top and bottom on because it's just the same as sewing the side, just the same procedure over again. So all I need to do is put a back and some batting in it. So I'm going to use this piece here for the back. I think that'll go quite well. It's just white with some little black marks on it. So I'm going to cut that to size, and then I'll cut a piece of batting to size, and just layer them together, back in, batting, and then the top. And then I'm going to decide how I'm going to quilt it. I'll get started and then I'll come and let you know what I'm doing. I have everything I need here now to start quilting. I have my needle threader, quilting cotton, my thimble, a pair of sharp little scissors. I have my quilt. I've got it in this circular frame to help keep it taut while I quilt. And I've already threaded my needle. I have a betweens needle. I've drawn my pattern onto the fabric. I'm not sure whether or not you can see that. And I'm just going to make a knot in my thread. You hear a little pop when it goes through. And then I'm just going to do a quilting stitch. So I'm putting my needle in, I'm doing small stitches, and I'm just going to rock in and out of the fabric a couple of times, pull it through. Quilting stitch itself is pretty simple. It's just about trying to get nice even stitches. And I'm just going to follow the lines that I've drawn and just go all over this quilt. So I'll carry on with that, and I will come back and show you when I've got it done. That's my mini quilt all made. I think it came out cute. Okay, just turn that over and show you the back. I did put a red binding on this. The binding's 2 1/4 like any other quilt that you would make. And I haven't actually shown you how to do the binding on this one. I do have a video where it shows putting the binding on, and I'll put a link at the end. And just do a little bit closer where maybe you can see some of the quilting. If you wanted to make this a full-size quilt, everything would be exactly the same except all the pieces would be bigger. You just have to measure it out what sizes you wanted to do before you started. So I'm pleased with that, and I hope my friend is too. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you hit the like button. Thanks for watching. Bye.